He had been admitted to a psych hospital, and he had received a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder.
The Chronic Truth Podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The views expressed by our guests are their personal opinions and do not constitute medical advice. While we share experiences and strategies related to health, neither the host nor the guest are acting as licensed medical professionals unless explicitly stated. Always consult your physician or qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your treatment plan. Listeners assume all risks associated with implementing any information discussed on this show.
Hello and welcome to the Chronic Truth Podcast. I'm Kimberly Nash. I have a surprise for my listeners. I have a special dual guests on today. Today's guests are powerful dual voices in the schizophrenia community and a true example of resilience and advocacy. Maye and Jason Jepson are mother and son advocates helping those navigate mental illness. From Jason's blog, jasonjeps.blogspot.com, to Maye's support groups and both of them sharing their stories to local law enforcement to help educate officers, these two are turning a very personal diagnosis into purpose. They are using their voices to educate, advocate, and inspire others navigating schizophrenia and mental illness. Welcome, Maye and Jason.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And I wanted to bring both of them on to give the community a front of both the patient and the caregiver, or trust partner, as we're going to say in this instance. Jason, let's start off with you and just share a little bit about you and, what transpired in your life.
Yes, things were not working out for me. And I saw Army life as probably the best way to get stability, have health care, and so my country, because 9/11 was recent. I joined the Army in 2003, and I went through basic. I went through AIT. It was rough, but I got through it. Did a lot of push-ups. Then I was shipped out, as they say, even though it's not the Navy. I was in the Army. Shipped out to Fort Irwin, California, in the Mojave Desert. Well, I had my psychotic break, and it just was not a good fit for me. I think just mainly mentally. There were red flags, but I used to be so mad at them because I thought they did not treat me right. Well, the reason they didn't treat me right is because they weren't trained to handle somebody with a severe mental illness. That's how I see it now. I don't know if I'll call them brothers, but I forgive them. I experienced hazing. I was duct taped because I was acting out. So they thought if I was punished, maybe I would get back in line.
It would straighten you up. Yeah.
Exactly. That's I look at it now. If I was an officer or NCO, I would give this private general discharge and tell them, you got to go, instead of punishing. Because I honestly thought there were red flags. I was acting out. I was smart mouth, and I thought the other soldiers could see my thoughts, and I would shout them out randomly. And of course, now I look at it, they have no idea what I was doing. They don't know who I am. It took me over a decade to get to a point where I know who I am now. I have a life. It's not all schizoaffective bipolar type does not define me. I have a daily routine, and sometimes I don't even talk about my illness at all. I started volunteering at a Goodwill a block away from my apartment. I told them I was a mental health advocate. That's about it. And we laugh, we joke around. They're the sweetest people in the world. I have my daily routine, which mainly involves, I was very validated recently. Mom told me about this. When you start your day, the first 30 minutes mean the most. So I usually do verse of the day, Daily Bread Ministries, which is like this like verbal devotional, Then I make up my bed. Those are pretty much my first 30 minutes of drinking coffee. And then I exercise, which has helped me so much. Walking therapy, that's what it's called. And I think everybody can use some. Sometimes I lift weights, sometimes I do push-ups. Life is good now. I'm 45 years old. I was diagnosed when I was 24, 25. You can live a life with schizophrenia. You can be productive. Recovery is possible. Be patient with your meds. Be patient with your doctors.
And that's something huge that someone newly diagnosed and families also that I'm hoping are going to be able to hear this is there's hope. And seeing you now, Jason, you appear so resilient and so confident. And
well, the thing is, newly diagnosed, you got to realize you got to get used to your illness. You got to understand your illness. Everybody's pretty different. It's general, but everybody's symptoms are pretty different with the delusions and voices. The voices are different, but you may hear voices. You may have delusions, but the delusions are different. You got to figure those out. You got to understand that if you're not 100% sure it's not really happening, do not react to it. That happens to me all the time during dinner, the local news and stuff like that. I think people are outside staring at me, but I just ignore it. And sometimes I just use apathy. I don't care about the crap going on inside my mind. I want to live my life. I want to watch my game shows. I'm a big Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy fan. Do not bother me now.
May, I'm sure as a mother, and on your past podcast, we talked about this, how we as parents have mindsets about how we think our children's lives should go. Do you want to start around that time frame?
Yes. I think most parents, by the time their children reach adulthood, young adulthood, they pretty much kind of know what they're going to do. They maybe have made plans to go to technical school or to maybe to college or to into some other profession. And I call that plan A. And that's kind of what we thought. Jason had enrolled in college and had finished 2 years of college. When he decided to join the Army. Up to that point, he had had a very normal childhood. There were not a lot of symptoms ahead of joining the Army. So, and I was later told by a doctor that a lot of times young people who've had led somewhat of a sheltered life in that their parents are there with them, can have not experienced a lot of stress in their lives. And schizophrenia might be just lying there underneath the surface. Mm-hmm. And that could come from a lot of different reasons. It does seem to be, in some cases, a genetic component. But, it can just happen. And it can also come from drug-induced. If someone has been using drugs, schizophrenia they could experience psychosis. But for Jason, none of that really seemed to be the case. I mean, we had relatives that, we could, that's, crazy Uncle so-and-so, but there was not any direct line that we could point to. He had not
psychosis.
Yes, he had not been a drug user. But anyway, so we thought that, when he decided to join the Army, that was probably a good plan for him. We had our family. We had military people in our family. And Jason was enthusiastic and excited about joining the Army. So that seemed like a pretty good plan A.
Well, you get to do most normal things that normally people don't get to do. I got to, play around with night vision goggles. If I did point A, kindergarten teacher or preschool teachers, I would be able to do that.
Right.
And you learned how to drive a tank, remember?
I know how to drive a tank.
Yes.
So if you need to move something, move a tank. I'll be willing to help you out with that.
Yeah. And then Jason was assigned to his first duty station. And
I think it was a big letdown for me. It was a desert. I picked it because I thought in 6 months they are deploying to.
You thought you were going to some.
Yeah.
I thought, in 6 months they were deploying to Iraq, and I was like, by then I'll be okay. I'll be completely transitioned to this military life that's disagreeing with me, and it came.
So
and
even it was kind of a letdown for you as well.
Yeah. So, as he got to Fort Irwin, he began to spiral down, and finally he was in full psychosis. We did not know that things were as desperate as they were. I received a call from...
They were a whole continent away. They were in Virginia. I was in California.
Oh,
So,
totally opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally opposite. Had no idea what he's doing.
Exactly. So, I got a call on a beautiful October afternoon. I remember it very, very well. And it was Jason calling me and asked, Mom, guess where I am? Well, I knew where he was. He was at Fort Irwin, but that was not where he was. He had been admitted to a psych hospital, and he had received a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder. And to say that we were devastated doesn't even begin to explain the depth of what we were feeling at that time in our lives. So, after a few weeks of just kind of being in limbo and just being racked with guilt, thinking, what did we do as parents to cause this? And thinking, why didn't we see this coming? So there was a lot of doubt on our part and thinking that, we could have done something to prevent this. I was actually a counselor. So I knew about schizophrenia, but I never even dreamed that that would happen to my son. And that's kind of odd because we know now 1 in every 4 people can have a mental breakdown. So our family was not spared at all. So eventually Jason did come home. He got an honorable discharge from the Army, which we're so thankful for.
VA benefits, health care. I could pay my rent. I could pay for groceries. I could save money. We got a trip in May going to Spain and
Yay!
Portugal. Yeah.
Portugal.
But, anyway, so he came home and he continued to spiral down until we had to call the police because he was a danger to himself and others. So that was the beginning of this journey into mental illness that we never thought we would go on. But now as we sit here today, I think we would both say that we are so thankful that we have had the opportunities that we have had to share our story of how we have turned this terrible thing, and it is a terrible thing.
It's a disruptor.
No one wants to be diagnosed with a mental illness.
Well,
but we want people to know that there is hope.
Well, I didn't know what help looked like. I didn't know help feels this good. And that was my parents' only option to get me help. And even then I was like, whatever's going on, so they'll figure it out. And, and I didn't fight them, and I thought if this is going to be, this is going to be.
So you needed that point too. You needed that point to come to a head to be able to get the help that you did.
Exactly.
And fortunately, when the police came to our house, it was a special unit that had been trained to deal with someone who was in psychosis. So they knew exactly how to calm the situation rather than making the situation escalated. So, but Jason was committed and was taken into custody. No crime had been committed, but he was taken into custody, appeared before a judge who said that he needed to get help, and he was sent to a psychiatric hospital.
Best and worst day.
Best and worst day.
Recovery started.
Yes, recovery started.
Recovery is possible. It's a tough beginning, but it's go on that road.
Yes. And it was at that point that I began to do research about schizophrenia and specifically about schizoaffective disorder. And I decided that if this was going to be something that would affect my son that we loved so much, I was going to make myself an expert. I was going to learn everything I could possibly learn about this terrible, terrible mental illness. And I was going to be, along with my husband, Phil, Jason's dad, we were going to take care of Jason, and we were going to make sure that he did not fall between the cracks.
And in the meantime, you created what you guys call as a trust partner.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that, Jason. What does the trust partner mean to you?
I make my appointments at the VA. It's just 2 blocks away from my apartment. I make my appointments. I'm on time for appointments. I go to the barber shop. I make that appointment, go to that.
He doesn't need much, but
And do they charge you full price? Shame on them.
Oh my God. Flat. Yeah, and I call mom every day on least text. And I don't want to be depressing, but sometimes I just need human contact. I don't always talk. I would need a real conversation, like, how was your day? I do talk to my neighbors. I try to be very neighborly. It's all part of advocacy is a 24/7 thing. I don't want to be in the shadows. I don't want to be reclusive. I want to be out there. And that's where goodwill comes in too. I like to think that I have a volunteer job.
And being a trust partner means
we can be honest with each other.
I don't want anybody who's listening to this to think that we have such an easy life because somehow we've conquered this amazing.
There's no cure.
There's no cure for schizoaffective disorder, but at some point you realize that this is very serious. And, if we're going to be honest with people about what it takes, one of the most important things it takes is someone who can stand by the person who has the mental illness. Now, Jason, as you could see, is a young adult. He takes care of his own apartment. I don't have to do his laundry. I don't do anything for Jason.
I enjoy doing those things. I like taking care of myself. There's so many people who can't do that. So I feel very blessed. I can take care of myself.
So I don't do anything for Jason that he can do for himself. Now, a trust partner is someone who comes along, someone who has this mental health diagnosis and says, I will be with you. I'm not going to act as your mom. I'm going to act as your friend. We are friend to friend. You can tell me if there are symptoms that you're having that, you need help with.
Mm-hmm.
But I am your safe place. I'm the place you can always come if you have a question or if you feel unsafe or if you are having symptoms that are scary for you. Come to me, ask me questions. I am your trust partner. And so that's how we have labeled our adult relationship. Now, the word caregiver is important because if there are things that a person cannot do for themselves, they need a caregiver. And so, but at this point in our lives, I'm a trust partner, not necessarily a caregiver.
Well, I drive, and she had to be with me in the beginning days of my driving again. Going to the appointment, she was in the passenger seats, and she gave me that support, and she gives me support every day because I get to call her every day. I love hearing what she's doing with her twin sister, my aunt. I'm hearing what they're doing, so.
What mischief they're getting into.
Exactly. They have fun together, don't you, Mom?
Yeah.
Well, I love seeing your guys' blogs and posts about, your trips as a family. You have a very strong family unit. And
yes,
that's huge. Support.
I think, I was going to ask Jason, how important has that been in your diagnosis, having a strong family?
My dad is probably my best friend. I can tell him whatever. My aunt and I laugh and joke around and stuff. My mom and I, she's honest with me, and I can be honest with her. and we don't get along all the time, but
Yeah.
And you guys are on camera, so we can see all this.
Yeah.
I love her so much. She's a good friend too.
Yeah. But, in the beginning, I think one of the most important decisions that we made right after Jason's diagnosis, even before we began the advocacy or anything, we decided we were not going to keep this a family secret.
That's tough to do.
Yeah, it is, because there's such stigma around mental illness. But we decided that we were going to tell our family members. And we were going to let them know that Jason had been diagnosed with a brain disorder, not unlike another disorder that you might have in your body.
Respiratory.
A respiratory disorder, lung, heart, kidney, anything. But, and this would be with him for the rest of his life. He would take medication that would help him to deal with the symptoms. But we were not going to shield him and shield this diagnosis from our other family members. We told our church friends. We told our neighbors. They know, because they knew Jason and they cared about Jason too. So that was an important step, deciding we're not going to keep this a secret. This is not different from any other disease or disorder that you might be diagnosed with, and you need help.
Well, I think it was 2008, 2009. I was in a good place in recovery. I was as good as I am now, but I've always been a writer. Writer is my first love. I have to write. It's part.
It's a release.
It's a release. It's more than therapy. I like that way of thinking creatively and putting it on a page. I found Schizophrenia Bulletin, who has first-person accounts. If you have schizoaffective, schizophrenia, any kind of form of schizophrenia, you have first-person accounts, and you realize you are not alone. And then I felt the need to write these first-person accounts. It's an academic journal. I don't have an academic behind. I just have my experience. I have my truth, and I write that.
Mm-hmm. Your chronic truth.
Well, and I feel with that, Jason, you being so open and honest about your feelings and what you deal with personally, you are giving space for someone listening or reading your items, comfort and hope that they're not alone. And
That's the point.
So for you going on and doing this blog, I try to share as much as I can, only because I truly feel it's an asset to others.
Thank you.
Exactly. I think so too.
Well, a lot of the older articles, Schizophrenia Bulletin, they put it away. They just show the extract.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I cite them and I put it back online on my blog.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't seem to mind. I mean, I'm mentioning them usually. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. And, one of the things when I first began researching schizoaffective disorder, one of the things that, and that was, as we've already established several years ago, there were no lived experiences. I could not find one single person who was talking as a parent about how their family was dealing with a loved one who had a serious mental illness. None. And so that was the big piece that was missing. So that led me to form my Facebook group, Parenting Through Mental Illness. And I try on there to share things that I run across in my research that might help a parent who has a young child, maybe even diagnosed with autism or some other kind of disorder that they're having trouble dealing with, just to give them information too. And of course, Jason posts a lot of his articles on there from his. So it's really a joint group that we have on Facebook, but just to help parents who are starting this journey and don't know what is the first step to take.
And you know that all too well because you've lived it.
Yeah.
And what better knowledge is coming from both of you who have lived through, as patient and as a trusted partner. You guys are on the forefront. Share a little bit about going to local law enforcement and, share a little bit about that, Jason.
it's great work, and I often tell the story that in my generation, we witnessed Rodney King on the TV, and even when the police came to get me, they had gloves, and I noticed, and that unfortunate case, those police officers who beat Rodney King had gloves too, and I was like, if I fight at all, I'm going to get beaten. But it's just like not every policeman is bad. Not everybody with schizophrenia or with severe mental illness doesn't get help or gets help. And, you got to remember that. We're not all perfect.
Right. And we work with NAMI, South Carolina NAMI, where we live. And especially in this area that we live in, we do help with training for police officers and first responders, even school resource officers, and any kind of security officer who needs this training of how to respond. The way that the policeman who came to check on Jason when we called, they knew how to do this. So
like we were at a barbecue, for goodness sake. We were joking, They de-escalated.
Yes, they de-escalated. So NAMI has given us the opportunity to share. That's one of the things that NAMI does that a lot of people don't even know about. NAMI's a wonderful site as a parent to go and to get resources for someone who has a mental illness. But we talk to those officers, and we usually tell them that, we can't go back to Virginia to where we were at the time when the crisis intervention team came to check on Jason, and thank those officers for how they treated him. So being able to participate in this training is our way of thanking those officers in Richmond, Virginia, for how they treated Jason and how they knew exactly how to make that situation one that where Jason felt safe, not threatened in any way. And as he said, they kind of joked around with him once they knew that he did not have a weapon, and they took it very seriously.
We try to encourage these officers,
Yes.
What your work, what you do does matter. And I still can't imagine being a first responder, getting that call and having to go to a person like me. I handled it fairly well, but other people would not, so.
And it's deciphering that, but what you're doing is you're putting a face to a health condition, and letting them know that what they do does matter in terms of your care from that point forward.
Yes.
Because had you been treated maybe a little differently, things might not have been the good outcome that it was. So
I don't regret it. I'm glad it happened.
And, in a few years after that, we moved to a different location. It was to a rural county where there was not a crisis intervention team trained on their local police force. And we read in the newspaper about a family who had a loved one who had a severe mental illness, and he was in psychosis. They called the police. The police came. They told the parents to leave, and they would take care of the situation. The next call that the parents got was that their son had been shot. And so, I don't know all the details, and there's probably, there's a lot more to that. But that they did not have a trained crisis intervention team that responded in the same way that Jason's team responded to him. So we want not only to educate families about serious mental illness, but also anyone who is in law enforcement or a first responder, how to react when they're called, because they will be called for a mental illness and for someone who is suffering in that way. And so we were happy to be able to share with families the hope that there is. It takes a structured plan for recovery. Jason, we say, is in recovery. He is not cured from schizophrenia. No amount of keto dieting, no amount of meditation, none of those things will cure schizophrenia. Now, I'm all about nutrition and having a healthy diet, but the only proven way to help someone who is in psychosis is through medication. And so
therapy sometimes.
Therapy, yes, talk therapy is very important. But medication helps you to be able to learn how to cope with symptoms and how to manage those symptoms. So that's where Jason is today. And we're so thankful that we've been able to get that kind of help for him. And we want every parent, every loved one, whether it's your brother or your sister or your husband, any loved one, we want them to know that there is hope. Things can get better. That's the important message.
I think I've tried 3 different kinds of medications before I found the one that actually worked for me.
And so that's a key there too.
Yes, it is.
We've been after dealing with this for over 2 decades.
Yeah.
And
trying to find the right stuff
right now.
Yes. And that's a journey. And a lot of people feel like, okay, if I take this pill, everything's going to be fine. No, it's like with any other kind of ailment you might have. The first medication that the doctor gives you for that, as treatment may not work. You may have to go back to the doctor and you say, this is not helping at all. And he may have to prescribe a different medication. It's exactly the same way. No 2 people are on this journey in the very same way. As Jason mentioned earlier, people have different symptoms. People have different journeys, and different medications work differently with our bodies. So it takes patience where the medication is concerned. But one of the things that has helped us and that we do promote is the long-acting injectables for people who have long-term
magic drug.
It has helped Jason tremendously to be able to manage his symptoms. And now
you throw away the pill organizer. You ever use this pill organizer?
Oh God, I got one right now, Jason.
Yeah.
I wish I can go completely on LAI. I'd take a pill, but I take a shot every month, and I don't have to remember a pill, and it's just there's a month, 3
Much
months,
easier.
And 6 months, and there's
Yes.
other.
So
just research it.
There's lots of options out there. And I wish in the very beginning we had known about all the options.
Mm-hmm.
It would have saved us years of agony and, and trying to figure it out. But now people need to know there are so many options out there for medication. And so, but it's getting on it and staying on it. And sometimes in the beginning, the loved one has to be monitored very carefully to make sure they are taking their medication.
Well, this poem can be found on my blog. One of the lines is, "The struggle is beautiful once you can look back on it."
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's definitely valuable to be on the struggle, because you do get to a point where you can look back. It's like,
because now you can see where you've come.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Yeah. And I would think too, if you're trying a medication and you're on it and you're thinking, oh, I'm good, I don't need to do it. I'm sure there's people that go off of it thinking, oh, I'm okay. And then you got this roller coaster up and down thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're starting over and over and over. So it's a repeated cycle. So stay on your medicine.
That's where the trust partner comes in too.
Good.
The trust partner. It used to be that I would call Jason every night. Now, who wants to be called by their mom every night and ask, did you take a pill tonight?
Jason, you're smiling.
But part of schizophrenia too is a cognitive decline. And so he would forget to take, or he couldn't remember if he had taken it or not. So that's why the long-acting injectable was really good. It's time-released, so he didn't have to. And so people who are on a long-acting injectable are much more likely to stay on their medication than people who are taking an oral medication. That's a lot of studies have been done on that issue. So.
another way I'm different. I can go on the 3-month or 6-month long injectable, but I like going to my VA once a month to talk with a psychiatric nurse. That's I have the insecurity of thinking I'm going to fall through the cracks. So I figure once a month they'll deal with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do blood labs once a month. So I'm every month, twice a month or so, I'm seeing a nurse.
Yes.
And that just makes me feel
And
comfortable.
it makes him feel better to do that. It makes him feel better. As we talked about this, I know it sounds like these people are talking about pie in the sky. I mean, every day is not a good day, but Jason stays on his medication.
Well, shoot, I'm friends with this huge advocate, and I asked him, do you get a lot of symptoms around the evening times, about 6? He said, yeah, I take my meds and everything, but it's peak time for schizophrenics, 6 to 8. For some reason, you can take your meds, you can reduce all triggers, but still you're feeling some paranoia that there's somebody with headlights in your parking lot staring right at you.
Yeah. Jason, tell Kimberly, what are some of your triggers? What can trigger symptoms?
Hunger.
Mm-hmm.
If you're hangry, you're going to have symptoms.
Hungry. Yes. Hangry will make you have symptoms.
Stress. I say I'm driving, so I'm listening to gospel music. I am praying to God, which is my meditation. and I'm driving like that. What else? Being tired, not having enough sleep. I go to bed, usually it's before 10 o'clock and I wake up about 8 or 7. And I'm not well rested, but I know I have enough sleep because I try to get 9 to 10. Mm-hmm. Some people have to get longer when they're on the stronger medications. Mm-hmm. And, it's so important to find your triggers for you and have a daily routine. You got to have to do something.
Yes.
I value this time that I have, that I can, walk. If I feel like writing, I can write. But I try to have a structured routine. And I think that's from being in the United States Army and having a mom like this.
Who makes you make up your bed every day.
Yeah, I make up my bed every day. I think that's a great way to start your day now. I understand it now.
There you go. Well, you had it beat into you with the Army, too.
Yes.
Your bed had to be bounce a quarter or something off your bed, I heard.
Corner,
so.
Yeah. Hospital corners, they're called. Yes.
Oh, yes, hospital corners.
And one of the problems that a lot of people have with staying on medication is they feel like it causes them to gain weight. And that happens. So I think that's why you have incorporated the exercise so strongly in your routine.
And I try to do intermittent fasting. Don't do it too much because that'll trigger you for hunger. But how else are you going to combat the weight gain? That's the side effects of an antipsychotic. And I think I found a good balance there. You don't want to do it too much, but you want to do it within reason.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And trial and error. So again,
that will work for you. Sometimes that's like that.
Mm-hmm. And Jason has learned how to be a good cook. You cook for yourself.
She likes seeing my pictures of my dinner.
I do.
They got me an air fryer that I'm loving.
Yes, now he has an air fryer. You can start blogging about recipes.
I should make a cookbook. Only one meal.
Only one meal would be in this cookbook.
How can our listeners get in touch with you? Are you guys on social media?
I'm on Facebook. I think it's jason.jepson5, something like that, on Facebook and Instagram.
So, and Jason's your blog spot. You blog.
Blogspot.
Yes. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Maye, Maye, Hayes, Hayes, Jepson, Jepson. And my Facebook group that I started is called Parenting Through Mental Illness. And it's for, all new parents, old parents, whoever is in between.
Perfect. And I encourage anyone that's hearing this, if you want to book them to come speak at an event, truly amazing advocates. That story, if it doesn't resonate with you personally, it will with someone in your audience. So I highly recommend reaching out and booking them, even for another podcast. If you're a podcaster and you're hearing their story book them. I highly recommend them. Jason and Maye, thank you so much for sharing your story, your strengths, and all the work that you guys are doing to advocate for so many others with mental health diagnoses.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you so
Kimberly.
much.
To our listeners, if this episode has spoke to you, please share it with someone who needs this encouragement or is going through this. Please share this episode with them because you don't know who's going to want to have to hear this. And don't forget that, listeners, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your support helps us to continue bringing you powerful stories like Jason and Maye's to light. And until next week, not without a fight.